Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of people and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about AV. Okay, what is AV? Everybody goes, I understand AV. I kind of understand what it means, but audiovisuals are a huge component of the world of weddings and events. And our guest today, Damon Russell, is the owner of one of the most sought after companies in South Florida, Complete Media. And I almost got that wrong. Complete Wedding and Events. And he's going to be joining us shortly. But in the meantime, let me bring on my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hi, Marcy.
How are you today?
I'm good. So I love the fact that we were having some fun before we went live, and we'll talk about a little bit of some of the laughter that we were having before we went live. But anyway, you know, AV is part of every single event in basically South Florida. I mean, huge. Everywhere. Yeah.
Yes,
it's a huge component.
A huge component. I mean, especially in the catering and convention world where we both came from. Yeah, huge. I mean, like you have to know a lot about those details. And having somebody professional to know what they're doing is essential. You can't just rely on anybody. You've got to rely on the right people.
And that's the thing. I think that a little knowledge here will go a really long way and help both sides. I think this is really important for couples to understand and also for vendors. You know, what kind of questions should a couple be asking the vendor and vice versa? What kind of questions should the vendor be asking the couple? Right. So, well, let's bring on Damon. He can answer some of these questions. Hey, Damon, welcome to the show.
Hey, Keith, Marcy. I appreciate you having me here.
Oh, well, we're excited to have you on. And Damon, so I'm going to just put it out there that like Damon and I first met, 12 years ago.
I'm not that old, Keith.
Yes, you are. Anyway, but when I was the director of catering for Ritz-Carlton and I was dealing with not so great of an AV company and I wanted to bring somebody else in, and you and I had a great conversation, and like from then on, you were like my go-to.
Yes, I remember those days like it was yesterday.
Like it was yesterday. I mean, it really did. And I think you were just in the process of building the company at that time, and you have just gone gangbusters since then.
Thank you. Thank you. It just boils down to, I have a philosophy that's never say no. If you remember, Keith, anytime you ask me for anything, can you do it? Yes, I can.
I know, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was really crazy. And, you know, and there's a lot of people that are kind of in their lane and they like, look, this is what we do. And you were always like, okay, no matter what it is, I can figure it out.
I was just going to say, you got to figure it. Sometimes you just got to wing it and figure it out. But if you have the knowledge behind all the AV experience, that's what helps you along in the whole process.
So, Damon, tell us a little bit, because I know you, obviously, and I know about your company, but tell everybody a little bit about you, about the company, to get us started.
Sure, absolutely. So, Complete, we've been down here since 2005. I actually started out as a DJ, so I used to spin the wax and all that. I still have tons and tons of records back in my warehouse that I play with sometimes. That's where I started really tinkering with AV, learning about speakers and microphones and sound in general. Why does this sound good and this sound bad? And then when I went from the club scene to weddings, and I just kind of took everything along with me. And I've been doing that, like I said, since 2005 with weddings, and have loved every minute of it.
And then how did Complete Media come into this? Because you were doing this on your own, I'm assuming.
Yes, correct. So I actually found, I was DJing overseas. I came from overseas and reached out back home and said, hey, I'm a DJ. Can somebody hire me? I'll play for free and show you how awesome I am. And everybody told me no, except for Complete. Complete said, sure, whatever, guy. Nope, not kidding you at all. Everybody told me no. I was DJing on the radio and all that stuff, and they're just like, no, I don't want you to DJ for free. Really? That's an interesting concept. I've never heard that before. And Complete said, sure, we'll go ahead and give you a shot.
Can I take you up on the out for now? You're like, hey, can you DJ for this wedding?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. No,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So then Complete gave me a shot, and I started DJing for them, and then I got the opportunity to actually buy in, and that's when I moved down to South Florida, packed up everything in my Astro van, and moved down to South Florida, and kind of took Complete where it is now.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, and then so I'm assuming that you've been gaining the knowledge throughout the years, because a lot of things have changed dramatically. And I love the fact that one of the things that you talked about was uplighting. I mean, uplighting is one of those things that we kind of take for granted now. But, it used to be that they weren't wireless, that you had to plug everything. They were super hot,
Huge.
and all sorts of major issues. They would blow breakers constantly.
Right.
But so how has that been, as far as like, do you have to keep going and learning new things because technology is changing so fast?
Absolutely. If the Rolling Stone gathers no moss kind of thing, it's the same concept with technology. You have to be able to keep up with the times. Things are changing all the time. If you look at the way that uplights are now, and as opposed to even 3 or 4 years ago, the huge squares. You remember the huge squares? Now everything is the triangle, smaller diodes with larger a throw, right? And so that's really a testament to technology. I was expressing to somebody the other day wireless uplights. We actually did wireless uplighting when there was no wireless uplighting.
Yes.
We got regular uplights and computer battery backups. And we use computer battery backups and plug the lights into those, set the lights on top of the backup, these huge brick. They were humongous, like humongous, but it was wireless. And we actually did it in Bimini, in the Bahamas.
Wow. Wow. So
that was like 07. That was 07 when we did this.
So you figured out how to do wireless before there was wireless.
Correct.
I'm just saying.
And you know why? Because somebody said, "Can you do wireless?" And I said, "I think we can."
You're like, sure. Okay. How the hell did we make this happen? Oh my God.
Right.
I was about to say clap on, clap off. Like, that's pretty wireless.
Yeah.
But no, I guess that probably would work. All right. But so when we talk about, and for couples that are out there, AV, audiovisual, is a huge amount of, like, a huge component of the event. I mean, audiovisual, that just says a lot. It's a big umbrella statement there. What is typically, when somebody is asking about AV, what does that usually encompass?
Most of the time when a couple wants AV, it's going to be a screen and projector. That's going to be kind of the go-to. We need AV, we need screen and projector, or we need a speaker and a microphone. Sometimes it's a combination of all of those. But when someone says AV coming into a wedding, those are what they're typically talking about.
Wow. Okay. And so is then uplight a separate conversation, or is that also considered audiovisual?
Technically, it's considered audiovisual, but uplighting is considered lighting now. It's its own category. As you know, Keith, and Marcy, all the events that you guys take care of, lighting is its own entity. So it's not necessarily the audiovisual side like it used to be. So when people say AV, typically lighting is then something separate. They'll even say, "I want AV and lighting," is typically what we hear.
Oh, gotcha. And then what are, like, and when a couple is, like, let's say, I'm not going to bring up any specific hotels, contrary to my reputation on this show. But there have been hotels that I've worked at before where, let's say that the electrical system wasn't so great, right? And the couple, and when we ask the couple, it's like, is there plenty of power in the ballroom? They're like, yes, absolutely. There were outlets everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere. And then you get there the day of, and then there are no outlets. And then somebody says, "Oh, well, let's do a power drop." Explain what a power drop is to couples, to people.
Absolutely. First, I want to go back, Keith. Just because there are outlets all over the ballroom, that really only means there are outlets all over the ballroom. Every outlet could be on the same breaker. So you have 100 outlets and everybody plugs in whatever, an iron in there, and then all of a sudden the breaker pops and the DJ is silent. So I want to talk about that first. And then a power drop is dedicated power. It is something that the hotel, especially some of the larger branded hotels, would have a dedicated line specifically for a band to plug in. A band typically doesn't want to plug into a wall outlet because they draw a lot of power. The same thing if you're doing a lot of even some of the larger DJ setups. So the power drop is a separate line that nobody else plugs into. It actually runs directly from, like, a closet or from the wall into a box that has outlets that you can just plug in separate from everything else.
So it kind of safeguards the idea that, you pop a breaker type of thing.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
And if you do pop a breaker, then literally the breaker's right there at the power drop, versus I'm sure at some of the hotels you've been where you pop a breaker and then, oh my God, it takes 45 minutes to find engineering. And then engineering has to go find this breaker and figure out which one popped. And by then the wedding's over, right?
I actually had an instance where they popped a breaker and it was behind an installed mirror. And nobody knew it.
You're kidding me.
No, it was.
Oh my gosh.
It was a nightmare. We were running extension cords from the hallway. It was unbelievable trying to figure out where this breaker was. But yeah, I guess they had never had popped a breaker before. Well, there goes mine. But and then with the power, I think that a lot of people don't understand that there are different types of power, and there's such a thing as clean power for sound systems. Correct. Right, because I hear I remember doing this event ages ago for let me name drop here, Mark Cuban, and
nice.
we had a really well-known singer that was coming in, and he refused to plug in his sound system into anything else that was also sharing that same electrical piece.
Dirty power. Ooh,
right, because it creates a buzz in the speaker.
Right.
Am I right on that? Right? Am I recalling that? Because it's been a few years since then. But, and ever since then, I've always been a little focused on making sure that if it's a big band, that they have their own source of power to ensure that buzz noise doesn't happen.
Correct. Yes. We were talking about dirty power, and it's not always going to happen, but when it happens, then you just can't get that buzz out. You can't figure out what it is. So to have clean power, then the band knows that whatever is being plugged in there, really it's all about being grounded. It has the correct grounding. It has the correct isolation. If you plug in, a cell phone brick or something like that you just rig together and nobody knows about it, and then you plug in next to them, then you're going to get a buzz. It's going to sound, and it's only a problem when it's silent. When the band's rocking and rolling, no worry.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh my God, I was like, my time is up.
No, sorry, that was a technical
Stop talking, David.
That's when AV goes bad. I was like, what was that? Okay. Let me get back there. But no, seriously, I mean, this is what, and I have to, it was John Mellencamp, by the way, and I'll never forget. It was one of the best lessons I ever learned about audiovisual and about sound itself, about where sound is coming from, because he is hardcore about what it sounds like and exact placement of speakers in relation to the audience was
absolutely
it was like a science almost to this band.
It is, yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. If you don't have, I don't want to say the right company, because a decent AV company is going to know basic speaker placement. But if you're relying on a friend, I'm sure, unfortunately, we all deal with my buddy's going to be, playing a guitar or whatever. So he's going to plug in, he's going to put a speaker in a microphone, it'll be fine. And it's never fine. Right? Because they know how to play their instruments. They don't know about speaker placement. They don't know about acoustics.
Right.
To a degree of live representation or live reproduction of the sound. So speaker placement is paramount in relation to the audience. If you have feedback, how many times have you had feedback at an event, right? And then I drove me crazy. I was at an event, and they had someone who was the DJ, and he gave the host the microphone. Here's the microphone. And then the host walked right in front of the speaker and feedback like crazy, and the DJ's response, which if I wouldn't have let the host do that, but the DJ responded by turning the speaker, which stopped the feedback, but then it sounded like crap. Right. Because now the speaker is facing this way and the audience is behind it, right? So it's like, learn how to set your equipment up correctly and learn where to tell people where to stand. If I was there, I would have told the host, stand here, and I would have faced my speaker this way. Everything would have been fine.
And that's where a little education goes a long way. Marcy?
And speaking of acoustics, how important is it for you to know, either in advance or upon walking in, that there's carpeting or things that are going to absorb some of the sounds?
Good question.
It's very important, and I would say the our understanding is typically when we go into a ballroom, then that's what we expect. And if there's not, so I don't think we ask the question about if there's going to be carpeting or not,
Right.
but we get a lot of gems, right? And that's where it's like, oh my gosh, right? We already know going in there. Yeah, we get a lot of, just places where it's just the hardwood floors and all of that. But usually when we see a hotel, we know it's going to be carpeting that does help absorb the sound and stops the echo. Really, carpeting is best, having, these hard gyms and these solid concrete walls where the sound's just bouncing everywhere and reverbing. We actually have a school that hired us to do their pep rally. And they're like, oh, we only need 2 speakers for 2,500 kids.
Because like some of these, some of the big, the big older hotels who have maybe a big rotunda where they may have a, the dinner or dancing, maybe it's out in the rotunda where there isn't any anything that's going to absorb the sounds. So I was just curious. I mean, is it important for people to add in other things that are going to absorb the sound?
It's not important to
and so forth.
Yeah, it's not as important to absorb the sound as it is to notify the AV, company or the AV technician what the surroundings are. If you walk into this big open field where we're thinking we're going to be enclosed, we have a couple speakers, and we automatically know it's going to end badly. We have to figure out a way to make this work, and usually it just doesn't end well if we don't know.
So this takes me to the dreaded table by the speaker moment. Right? Everybody has this. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to.
And they put grandma there.
Always the older
couples,
right?
So how do you get around that? And I personally tell couples, I'm like, look, invest in a couple of additional speakers so that way you can spread the sound out. So it doesn't have to be so loud coming from these two. What you're the professional. Give me your like thoughts on that.
Yeah. So anytime when people try to squeeze the AV or the speakers in a smaller setup, it's never going to be a perfect scenario because you're in this enclosed space and you're trying to squeeze, okay, we want the DJ to fit here, or we want the speaker here, and oh, by the way, there's a table in front of you. If you're able to get some type of input when you walk into the room and you see a table right there, even though the mixer might be there, the microphone receiver might be in front of the table, we can place the speaker a little bit further out. If that's okay, then I would prefer to do that. I'm big on speaker placement. The speakers don't have to be right in front of the DJ. The speakers don't have to be right in front of the band. They can be a little bit wider to get that correct coverage. The dreaded being in front of the grandma's table with the speaker, I always suggest having multiple speakers, number one, and then that speaker is going to be lower. There is no question, because grandma's going to be the loudest complainer, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So we just bring that speaker down and everything else will compensate.
Yeah, because I mean that is like the number one thing that every wedding, there's always somebody that goes, oh, they put me in front of the speaker. It's like, oh.
I always used to tell people, whenever you're putting somebody by the speaker, make sure you're putting the people that are going to be up and dancing.
That's a good point.
Because
absolutely.
Those are the people that they're not going to be sitting and it's not going to be in their ear.
100%. Oh my goodness. I mean, of course, now I'm thinking about lighting, and I remember, do you remember gels? So if anybody doesn't,
oh my gosh, wow.
Right? Gels used to be like saran wrap, but thicker, and come in different colors that you would put over the light in order to change the color. And of course, sometimes they would melt because the light was too hot. The joys of gels. Anyway, but now technology with these uplights, they're capable of so much opportunity, like millions of colors.
Correct.
And the opportunity to do like wireless. The wedding that you did for me recently, where you decked out the entire room and then had all of them on wireless, it was incredible visually how you could change the dynamics of the room with the touch of a button.
Yes.
I mean, you went from this really cool visual for dinner to this hyper over amazing like light show for the dancing. It was perfect. Perfect.
And that also includes synchronizing. You can totally change, like, whether it's, strobing or, changing shapes and colors and so forth too. That's all in the mix now, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's technology called DMX. And DMX, not the rapper, but this is the technology. DMX it's a way of the lights talking to each other. You can either have one light kind of be in control of all of the lights, or you can have a light board or a computer. I like using my computer because it's just so much easier to navigate. So you set up your computer, and you can have for dinner a nice, beautiful amber or the teal like that's behind me. And when it's time to dance, then absolutely we can do the strobe effect, like Marcy mentioned. We can have them do some fade patterns. We can, when it's time for slow dancing, I like red, so we have red on there, little disco ball effect in the middle of the dance floor, all at the same time. Yeah.
What is it like? You think that is the number one thing that couples should be asking but aren't?
One of the things that I think that couples should ask is about the power, where they're going to be located. Not how many power outlets are there, but is there power? If you're going to have an event on the terrace and you want to have lighting, you want to have sound, is there power out here? I'm planning on doing these things. Is there power here? So that's number one for me. Number two, it's not necessarily the question they should ask. It's don't keep it a secret. I'm sure with wonderful planners like you, it's different. But normally, we go into events, the client hires us to do a screen and projector. We walk in there, we're like, hey, we've got the screen and projector. And they look at us like, we're set for 50 people. There's no room for a screen and projector. Let's flip this room around so we can make it happen, instead of talking to the venue or to the planner beforehand to express that I hired these other people and that are going to bring this extra equipment that's going to take up some space. It's not like, a speaker is different. I can set up a speaker in a corner. It's not a problem. But if we're setting up a 12-foot screen, you might want to know about that, right?
Because it takes up a lot of room, and then we could even get into like rear projection and fisheye lenses and all that. I think that gets like way out of.
I only use fisheye now because of that issue. Fisheye is a short throw projector, yes, because we get into an issue where they don't want to pay more for the short throw because it does cost more because of the more expensive projector. So we just eliminated that pushback, and now we only use the short throw, so we can go into any scenario and set up our screens and projectors. So it actually helped when people don't tell the venue or the planner.
Has technology gotten cheaper, or has it become more expensive? Because that's one of the things is that obviously couples are always worried about the dollar, right? And so I find that education is a big component of what I do with the couple, especially when talking about costs and budgets and things like that. And then, they see all of these amazing videos on Instagram of all this incredible lighting and has that become more achievable for the masses, or is there still like a pretty different price point for some of this like over the top visuals?
Sure. That is a very good question. The best answer I can give is kind of like photo booths, right? The barrier to entry for a photo booth now is a few $100s. So yes, anybody can do a photo booth and buy some props and show up. And let's be honest, a crappy photo booth when you see one, right? As soon as they walk in the door, it's like, what in the heck, right? So it's the same with lighting. Again, you can go to BrandsMart and buy a 65-inch TV for $300, and that might be good for your house that you're never going to move it. But if you're using it for AV, then it's going to have screens that the LEDs in it are going to start failing, and it's not going to be something that you're able to sustain. And the same thing with lighting too. Lighting is cheaper, but there's no substitute for a good light. There's no substitute for a good HES light that may cost 5 times more, but it's never going to fail. How many times have you had a AV company or lighting company bring in lights, and then halfway through their event, the wireless lights died? It's supposed to last 12 hours, but for some reason it only lasted 3. Don't know why. Well, because you bought the wrong stuff.
Right. And I agree with that 100%, because, I actually bought uplights because I got really tired of couples, not wanting to go for uplights and needing something, but
needing uplights, right?
Yeah. And it's minor, like it's small amounts. It's not meant to be like, fill a ballroom type of thing. That's your job. That's not mine. But I think that a lot of people underestimate the power that lighting has on an event. It can change everything in an instant. You can take something ugly and make it gorgeous with a flip of a light switch.
Why do you think I have a light behind me?
Right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think it is the most undervalued piece in wedding planning so far. You know, people understand cake, they understand linens, they understand chairs, they understand florals, but I don't think that they always understand lighting and understanding the difference between a space during the daytime and a space at nighttime. They are very different.
Agreed.
Is that something that you need that you feel like, you know, is that part of your conversation with the couple? It's like, you know, let's look at this as an evening event after the sun goes down type of moment?
That is actually a very good way of approaching it. We never spoke about it. It's just like any part of the wedding. If they're dead set against it, there's nothing that you're going to say to change their mind. But when they have a little bit of an inkling and let me know more and let's talk about how this is going to affect my event, then absolutely showing them the room. I always do before and afters. I have before and after photos when we're talking about lighting, so you can see, you know, this is the ballroom and this is the ballroom with lighting. This is the ballroom with a gobo, right? And so that's what we try to do when they're interested. If they're not, you're not going to sell them on lighting because they don't see the value regardless of what you bring.
Wow, interesting. And then how important is it to have like one vendor?
So when it comes to
sorry, you first.
No, I was going to ask about the ceremony. So when it comes to the ceremony, there is a factor of the sound and there is a factor of the lighting. So a couple of questions regarding the sound. Are people still miking up like a lot of times you would mic up a groom with a wireless lavalier? And are they still doing that? Or is there something else that has come into the mix? Because it's been some time since I've worked in that area.
No worries. As far as the ceremony, I've actually talked countless couples off the ledge of using a lavalier. I'm on the beach and I want to use a lav mic. We're going to clip it here so everyone can hear me. Guess what? Nobody's going to hear you. Nobody's going to hear you because it's just going to be
the wind
all through here. Right, exactly. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. So no, please. Couples out there, please. No lavaliers on the beach. I don't care how cute and how easy it is to manage. No one will be able to hear you. It never works out well. Never. Handheld microphones, please. Handheld microphones. It may be, you know, an ugly microphone that you're holding, but people can hear you and it needs to be functional. And so having a handheld microphone is key. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Marcy, because it's like a bane of my existence. Why can't we have a lavalier? Because then you're going to be mad at me later. Nobody could hear me. It just sounded like the wind.
Right.
I kind of told you that.
I mean, but for indoors, you can use it still, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Indoors, yes. But then also the thing that you need to understand with the lavalier microphone, it's for one person. If you're going to use a lavalier, then the officiant would be mic'd up, the groom would be mic'd up, and then when the bride speaks, then it would be they would need to be really close to each other so they can both be picked up. Obviously, if we have two grooms and we can have 3 laughs and we're good to go, fantastic. Right. But if you're wearing a gown, you don't have pockets and you don't want to tuck it in.
Well, I mean, I have tucked it in some really random places on the road. So let me just tell you, that's crazy.
And then as far as lighting, I mean, I'm assuming it's kind of the same situation as having your ballroom for the dinner. You're still going to need some lighting, especially for an evening wedding.
Any evening ceremony, I suggest lighting. Any daytime ceremony, even if it's close, it's not going to have that grand effect that you want. Yeah. And so I always tell couples, if you choose the reception. We can't compete with the sun, but we can dim the lights in the ballroom and it'll be fantastic. But if it's at 5 o'clock and sunsets at 5:40, even 5:20, then the sun is still going to be out and the lights aren't going to have that same punch that they'll have inside the reception room.
So social media has obviously been is a huge factor when it comes to weddings. I mean, everybody wants to have that, 3-minute or 6-minute little video that they put out on Instagram. And, and of course, during COVID, live streaming became a big thing. How has that technology become easier to work with since COVID? Because really the only thing that we really had was Zoom at one point.
Sure.
Is Zoom still like the go-to program for that type of thing?
No, we don't use Zoom at all, unless it's required. I believe, actually, Keith, I believe we talked about an event coming up where you want to have interaction between
Yep.
the people at home and the couple and the attendees at the wedding. So the
April
best is
20th.
going to be, I'm sorry?
April 20th. Yep,
Beautiful.
that's the wedding. Yeah, yeah. That's for sure, by the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. On air. I got it.
Yeah.
So Zoom or Teams are going to be the best for that when you want the interaction. I'm a huge fan of Vimeo for just a live stream. The way that it's hosted, that it's private, that it's an easy link for your guests to get to. I like that when it's just a stream, when you don't have that interaction.
Yeah, and that's what recently I did a wedding recently where we did a video booth, kind of like a reality TV kind of where they go in and express all their private feelings to the public. Right. And so we did this, and it was amazing to have somebody there with a camera, and it did the countdown, and people could leave a video message basically for the couple. Do you see that increasing? Because it's a fairly new piece. Like it used to be, like the photo booth was everything. Everybody wanted to do a photo booth. Right. And now I see that technology is really starting to advance, and that, people are doing mosaics, photo booth mosaics, where you get the photo and then it gives you a number and you stick it on, and then it creates a larger photo. I mean, there's some really interesting things out there. I guess the question is, what is kind of the next coolest thing that you see being the go-to thing that couples want as an extra piece for their wedding?
I think that the private aspect of it is going to be more of the key. You mentioned the video booth, but then also the phone booth, right? You have that phone booth thing that's huge. So anything where it takes it from this spectacle, I guess you'll call it, like the photo booth, of the 360 photo booth, the mirror, where everybody sees you and you're having this grand time. So then other people want to join. Yeah. And making it into a private session. So whatever that private session is what I feel is going to be kind of the next thing when it comes to like the video and the I guess the streaming technology.
I love that idea. I mean, I remember the days when people would sit at the table, they're eating dinner, and then somebody would come up from the AV and they would hand you the microphone, pass the microphone around, and everybody could hear you. And it's like, this is so much nicer because I think it will make it more personalized for the couple after their wedding. Right. So I think that's a beautiful moment.
I agree. And I think also, Marcy, one of the things that you mentioned, it still happens, to be honest, that, people, the videographer going around and saying, here's a microphone, speak. And you're like, oh, and the 90% of the time, people do two things. Congratulations. And hi, I'm Damon. You can see me, but I'm still going to tell you my name because that's just kind of the way it works in history. Right? So, hi, I'm Damon. I've known you since you were a baby. Congratulations. Many years of happiness, right? It's like there's nothing unique about it. When you're by yourself, then you have time to think about something and make it unique, even though it may be shared with the world, but it's unique to you and nobody else knows what you're doing.
Yeah, I still do that with my mom. I still leave her a message and say, hey, Mom, it's your son. And she's like, who else would call me mom? I don't understand why you always have to say that. I'm like, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Well, so, and with the video comes obviously social media, because social media is now a big component of weddings. I feel like, now there's Instagram Live that you can actually stream your ceremony live on Instagram. And I understand that you actually have a YouTube channel.
Correct.
That's a little on the funny side, a little bit on the sarcastic side. Can you tell us a little bit of that?
Absolutely. Before I do give my shameless plug, please don't Instagram Live or YouTube Live your ceremony. It's boring. I'm sorry. You're holding up your phone. You're like, hey, see what's happening. What are they saying? I don't know. I need a translator. Right? Hire a streaming company, right? Please don't do that, because nobody enjoys that. It's not fun. So that's number one. So now my YouTube is it's at Complete Weddings and Events, and I go on YouTube and I find unique things that I can react to. I have reacted to couples suing vendors. I've reacted to vendors suing couples. I've reacted to grand entrances. There are grand entrances in like Africa and in the Congo that are amazing. I have never seen anything like these entrances. I mean, they have a whole dance company that come in with the bride and groom, and they do this dance routine. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like that before. And so that's what I like to do. I like to react, and I like to give couples, I guess, the real insight. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'd love to get business, but I don't want to get business when you have a misconception. Yes. And I'd rather talk about, these things that other vendors are scared to tell you because they want to book the business. So I'll tell you, like, tip your vendor. Yes, you should tip your vendor, right?
Absolutely.
Or feed your vendor. Yes, you should feed your vendor, right? It's an added expense, but they're there for 10 hours. Give them some food or they'll pass out on you and you have no photos, right? So those are the things that I like to talk about on the podcast, and I like to react and give my backseat law degree a spin. Don't have a law degree, but it's
Well, I do that. I actually send out a tip sheet to all of my couples that give them kind of a general sense of what to tip, and who to tip, because they're always
a tip sheet for tips. I like that.
Yeah, a tip sheet for tips. And I always say, look, it's your decision whether or not you're going to tip. There's nobody expecting a tip. They're not holding their hands out. They're not going to change like the value of their job because of what they get at the end of the night, because it's always given at the end of the night. But if you decide, here are some typical amounts, right? They need guidance. And I think that's one of the things that we in the wedding industry need to become better about is really educating our couples and not blowing smoke up their ass, right? I'm just like, that whole sugar coating thing just drives me crazy. It's like, be real, be upfront, don't try to sell them because you want to get, an extra dollar here or there. It's not going to be worth it in the long run. You're going to end up disappointing them, and then it's going to affect your reputation long term. So,
Speaking of no sugar coating,
yes,
you have to tell us about your YouTube show.
Oh,
that's even a more in-depth.
Well, we just talked about it.
That's like, he gets down and like, he's very funny. I've watched many of his episodes, and they're very, very funny. It's very satirical. I mean, it's just, you've done a great job with that. And
Thank you, Marcy.
I give you a lot of kudos, because
Thank you.
A lot of people hold back. A lot of vendors will hold back. And I think you're very authentic in giving them valuable information.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
One of my favorite episodes, actually, I talk about this, it's Judge Ross, but I think it's a fake court show. But regardless, the bride won a wedding gown from a vendor. And then the bride decided that she had a dream. And in her dream, God said that she wanted her baby to be with her. So she cut a hole in the back of the damn dress and walked down the aisle with the baby in the back of the gown.
I saw that. I was hysterical. I mean, that was a perfect run.
And I called it the kangaroo dress. It was.
Oh my gosh.
My God. People are weird. Oh, my
But it boils down to, Keith, again, I'm not a lawyer, but it boils down to, she won the gown. The vendor was upset that she altered the gown, but there's nothing you can do because you didn't put it in your contract that you can't alter my gown. So why are we here in court, right? And so that's what, like, the vendors, you need to be real about your contract. What do your contracts say that can protect you? And the same thing with the clients. Do you have a contract? Get a contract signed, because if you don't, then it's just, your word against theirs.
Well, and that's at the end of the day, our job is to help couples achieve their dream, but they need to do so based in reality. You got to know some of these things. And I'm going to just go back to, know your venue, know the power needs, know what the costs are going to be for adding additional power. If you're doing an event offsite, get a generator. Don't try to siphon off of a neighbor's house or the one outlet that the state park turns on when the overhead lights come on, and that happened to me once, actually. And it was very disturbing, because they're like, oh, well, when the street lights come on, the outlet starts to work. I'm like,
okay,
no, we can't test anything. What? Are you kidding? Anyway, so and then the other thing I just want to put out there, and this is just for me, by the way. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll notice that there was just a random huge increase in followers. So they're all fake, and so I just want to like put it out there
that like half fake.
They're not mine. I did not go for them. I don't make any money off of Instagram, so I don't care. So we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to get rid of them, but it ended up being a big old sales scam. So,
I also want to point out,
yeah,
I think that one area that I think that couples
forget talk about, yeah,
is that they just need to be clear about what their true budget really is. I think a lot of times people are very guarded with the information, and they're actually doing themselves a disservice, because if they were honest and clear about it, then people can, work within the budget. But when you're not being true to yourself and you're not being true to the person that's trying to help you, you're just spinning the wheels, and it's making your time longer. It's going to make more time, your process is going to become longer for yourself. And I think that it's only a detriment versus helping your situation better.
100%. There are people out there, there are vendors out there at all different price points. And so all you're doing is just wasting time. Be honest about your budget. And then that way we can properly guide you to the vendors that are going to be in that budget that will do the best job for that price point.
Right.
So, don't be afraid to ask, or don't be afraid to say it. Unless you're at a wedding show at some random hotel out in the middle of nowhere, then don't talk about it, because that always freaks me out. The vendors there are like, here, we'll give you 25% off if you sign today. Ugh,
right.
Don't do it. Don't sign today.
Don't sign anything.
Damon, again, thank you so much. If people wanted to get in touch with you or wanted to reach out to you, how do they do that? We've been running it on the screen below, but if you're listening to our podcast, how do people reach out to you?
Absolutely. So if you want to go to Instagram, it's complete MVP. Our website is completewedo.com/Fort Lauderdale. And of course, my YouTube, which I am spending a lot of time on there, that is Complete Weddings and Events on YouTube. And you'll see my beautiful face right there. So you can't
And it's all spelled out. Complete Weddings and Events. All spelled out. Not the little ampersand, but actually and.
Correct.
So again, thank you so much. This has been enlightening and fun and interesting.
Thank you, Damon.
And you're always a hoot. I love
you both.
I love working with you. Oh my God, you're just amazing.
I guess I'll see you in April, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully we'll see each other before then. You're doing you're sponsoring another event for me.
I was going to say,
nice. February.
Yes. I was about to say. Anyway, so thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in and listening. We'll see you next Tuesday at 2:00. But for now, we're going to say goodbye.